Hey everybody, I want to thank you for joining me today. You have tuned into Let's Talk About It. I'm Dr. Jackie Priestley, and I have a great guest today who I've known all your life, actually. Not all my life, but her life. With me is Alyssa Halberg. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Alyssa was gracious enough to drive all the way up from San Diego. For those of you who are not here in California, that's 5 days by wagon train. Yeah, it's quite a drive, and in the California traffic, it's nuts. So thank you, for your. I mean, you know, when she talked about this, and I found out about her story, I just thought we need to share this because too many of us, this is an arena where we struggle or have great emotional pain.
Absolutely.
Or, as you shared in the last show, we have instances where sometimes we experience public humiliation.
Yes.
So we're talking about carrying excessive amounts of weight on your body. And Richard, I don't know if you could do me a favor, please. Alyssa was gracious enough to bring a picture of herself 4 years ago. And then a picture of her now. And of course, you see her now. But 4 years ago, on your 5'4" frame, that was an alarming, really, your life is on the line level of weight.
Yes.
And the thing that I'm facing at my age and a couple visits I've had to the hospital and everything, our life is on the line every day anyway. But if we're carrying 20, 40, 50, 60, 80 pounds, we're playing Russian roulette with how unnecessarily hard our heart is working, our circulatory system, or our brains are dealing with too much sugar, too much fat. It's a dangerous zone.
It is.
So by way of introduction, I want you to know about Alyssa. You have a bachelor's degree that you earned from Biola University. Kudos.
Thank you.
And then you earned your master's in marital and family therapy from University of San Diego.
Yes.
And you became a licensed MFT, which is marriage family therapist, in 2014.
Yes.
So those are some big accomplishments. I looked into that field, and when I realized I was going to have to give half my life away just earning hours to get the license, I thought, I don't think I can tolerate this. I don't think I'm that devoted to this. So I really, that is a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
And goal that you stuck with and you had in your heart and your mind, and you took all the necessary steps and the dedication. That's a huge accomplishment. So
thank you.
And I know your wonderful heart and everything. You're a gift to the world on a lot of levels.
Thank you. As are you. Thank you so much.
Praise God. So you can watch the first episode to see the things that we shared and talked about and what Alyssa had to say. She had some key phrases. You had the one, change my
life, save my life.
Change my life, save my life.
Right.
That's huge. We need to turn that into a t-shirt. We'll have to think about that.
Okay. Yes.
And then you've become a real walker. Now, when you were first so heavy, it's not like you said to yourself, I'm going to buy a jogging suit and jog 3 miles a day. You were realistic. So how did you start to move in any way that indicated this for me right now is the level of exercise I can do? Was there a point where you were figuring that out?
Yeah, I think it was more, at least initially, I was so focused on the eating portion. I mean, I was moving as I could. I would do some walking, but nothing structured and nothing very like long, 45 or an hour at a time. Nothing like that.
Because you already could get winded too easily because your heart was working too hard. Your heart was actually working for the size of 2 grown people.
Yes, and my knees were hurting a lot.
Of course, and your feet, I would imagine, too. So you were focusing on the eating.
Yes, definitely.
So you got into action, and then there's phases of the journey where you started locking in mentally. And what were you coming up with?
Yes, so I knew in the beginning that it could feel very overwhelming if I thought about the sheer number of pounds that I needed to lose. And so you were so great last time about talking about the smaller, 5 pounds at a time. But even for me, I was trying not to think about the number, but just what are different things I can do to set myself up for success. And so...
Boy, that's great. Say that again, because I really...
Yeah, I knew I had
What
to
are
be
things I can-
intentional. And what are
Okay.
things I can do to set myself up for success in my home, in what foods I'm bringing in, what I'm learning to cook. I learned to cook more. Like I knew that there were things I could do to create a better environment for weight loss, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
that
makes
was
sense.
how it started.
And it's very, very practical.
Yeah.
Very rubber meets the road. It's not fancy. It's not jazzy.
Right.
It's just thinking intentionally.
Yes.
And coming up with little steps to a plan that will add up. It's kind of like Legos.
Yes.
It's just little tiny building blocks, but you keep working those little intentional things, and all of a sudden you start having results.
That's right.
So are there any other ways that you thought of setting yourself up for success? Did you decide no more drive-through, no more fast food, or what?
I tried not to tell myself like I won't ever have, because I've learned
that's not realistic.
Right.
You tell yourself, I'm never. Oh, yes, you are. You know.
Right. Until I'm triggered. Yeah. Basically. So in general though, I said anything that I perceived to be something that would be taking me further away from my goal versus toward it, I would keep out of the house. I would say, if I'm going to selectively choose once in a while to have that item, then I would go and be mindful about it. Go and have it, and not have it at my house in front of the TV. Like I wanted to separate the thing to be very aware of what I'm doing at all times.
So for instance, if you think, I really do want a small piece of chocolate cake, or I really do want a really fabulous chocolate chip cookie or whatever, instead of going to the store and buying the whole cake or the whole bag of the cookies, you would go, like, let's say, to a Starbucks.
Yes.
Order that, sit down intentionally, enjoy it mindfully, say, boy, that was good for me. But you wouldn't bring it home so that you were surrounded by more of it.
Right.
You know what? That is such a simple thing, but guess what I just gained for me?
Right.
Hello, there's my checklist inside. Yeah, and I have all the notes. So
that's right.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell myself, oh, I want some Oreos. So I come home with a bag that would feed an army of 5, and then I'll eat half of it at one sitting, and the next day I'll eat that. And then for a week and a half, I hate myself. I'm telling God I'm sorry for not taking care of the body He's given me to live in. And it impacts my whole digestive tract.
Absolutely.
I mean, it throws everything off.
Yes.
So if you want something, don't keep it around. Go, and maybe if you're driving halfway across town to go get it, you can talk yourself out of it on the drive.
That happened a few times. It did. By the time if I was driving 15, 20 minutes, I sometimes would work my way all the way through by the end of it and not get it.
Talk yourself off the ledge of wanting to eat.
Because I had to figure out why.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that, of the why am I doing this?
Yes.
What were some of the ups and downs? You mentioned that you learned to manage ups and downs. Are you talking emotional ups and downs that would then trigger eating? Or what are you thinking of when you say manage your ups and downs?
Yeah, well, initially I had said that I didn't weigh in because it was too overwhelming at the very beginning. So some of the physical ups and downs I knew were happening maybe when I would be 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But I wasn't having the scale telling me at the time, so so it was learning how to see like what choices I'm making and how those seeing how foods affected my body. But managing it was, I think, when my therapist had come up with that thing of, Alyssa, you're saving your own life here. And that's when so that was in that the first year of managing ups and downs, honestly. That was a lot of the first year.
Own life. Yeah.
Losing and then having little periods of something would trigger me. Often it was things like I felt lonely, or if I felt less than, or I had an encounter with someone that triggered me, something negative, and I would want to just kind of forget and numb out a little bit. And so I was still learning how to separate myself from food, having that purpose, I guess.
And it's interesting because some of you may be watching and you're thinking, well, I don't have an issue with food. I'm not overweight. I mean, sure, I could lose 10 pounds. Who couldn't? But maybe you're puffing away on a cigarette. Or maybe you've got that 4th beer sitting on the little thing you know, and so maybe you're numbing out or hiding or unwinding from a stressful day, and you're dealing with stress or whatever with lighting up, and you're killing your lungs. You're killing, you know, all kinds of things, oxygenation to your brain, adding to possibly 10 years from now getting Alzheimer's because of lack of oxygen to the brain. Or maybe you're throwing a cocktail down or two or a beer or whatever. So a lot of people, we have lots of ways of coping.
Yes.
Many of which those ways are self-sabotaging.
Yes.
And self-destructive. And we're too precious to be hurting ourselves like that. We need to find a different way. Now, you being a person who loves God and you know Jesus personally as your Savior, did you pull God into this or talk to Him on the journey? Or, I mean, where was that? Was that a significant thing for you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I think part of my journey has been realizing more and more I need to be relying on God in putting Him back in the right spot in my life and in my heart more than food. And so that's been sort of along these 4 years, one of the things that I've been learning. And I feel like I've done better or worse at various points with that, where I've tried to take control back too much on my own and say, I can do this, I'm having this success or whatever. Yeah. And having to say, no, like I need to keep surrendering it again and again. And I think the biggest way for me is I've struggled a lot of my life to hear God's voice. I mean, I've felt Him, but just to hear it. And I felt like one of the ways on this journey, I started, you know, prayer, journaling, inviting Him into those spaces that were the most painful for me in my history, and even just with the eating and the shame and all of that.
Interesting.
But also, I started to pay attention to the ways that God has shown up in my life individually. Like He often speaks to me through wise counsel of, you know, other believers and just people in general, and also through music. Like it just goes right through to the emotion for me, and and helps me touch into the spiritual side of things, and just realizing ways that I'm uniquely, you know, or different from other people even about
how
that.
you're wired.
Yeah, how I'm wired.
Yeah. So it's been a journey of discovery of self.
Yes.
You've had to face unhealthy self and unhealthy habits, and then come up with new ones. And that's where I think it's really smart to lean on God. And when we say lean on God, we don't mean, okay, check your brain at the door. Now you're an idiot. You can't make a decision for yourself. You have to sit in the car in the parking lot for 45 minutes until you hear from God to see if you can buy eggs or not. Please don't get like that. We're not. Oh my gosh, no. We're not talking about turn yourself into a weirdo. We're just saying a lot of people don't realize God is very willing to roll up His sleeves, so to speak, and say, you know what? I really love you. I've been here all along. And if you're inviting me to coach you from the inside and help heal the triggers and make you more aware and more intentional, baby, I love you. I would love to do this with you.
Yeah, that's right.
And He's all about jumping in and maybe giving us new and better perspectives that we haven't seen before.
Absolutely.
Or all of a sudden somebody says something to us, or we run into a show. You know, maybe that's you with this. And this is, you know, it's like you're suddenly realizing, oh my gosh, is God talking to me through this show? Yes. It's not spooky. It's not weird. It's not twinkle toes. It's not thee and thou-ish. God is very personal and precious, and He wants to get in there with us and help us and rescue us from the things we're doing to hurt ourselves.
Absolutely.
On whatever level that is. So, that's very cool. Now, you mentioned something about I needed to learn to lean into the fear.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes, I would say that has been one of the most important aspects of this journey. And it wasn't until this 4th year that I really adopted this idea of I've let fear and anxiety kind of rule a little too much in my life along the way. Part of the eating was with that. And so I decided that some of the things that I was afraid of, it was keeping me away from things that God wanted for me. And so one of the things that I've done is I knew I was afraid of doctors. I was afraid of getting blood test results. I was afraid of the scale for a while.
Sure.
And so that's when I leaned into
I'm afraid of the scale. I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
It said some ugly numbers at me in the last few months of my life, and I just, I'm embarrassed and worried about myself. So I can relate to that. But you're afraid of doctors and afraid of blood tests and afraid of...
Yeah, because I had a history since I was a child where I had just had some negative experiences where doctors were mean about my weight even as a child and stuff like that. So as a lot of overweight people feel ashamed or afraid to go see their doctor, afraid of being shamed or whatever.
Well, and people are rude and mean and unkind, and they don't realize an overweight person is already hurting because, you know, if somebody said, okay, there's 2 buttons in front of you. You can push this one that says, I like being 180 pounds overweight. I'm going to stay this way. Right. Or there's a button that says, this can all change for me starting today. Right. Gee, which button would the person push? Yeah. So for a doctor or somebody to, quote, shame an overweight person instead of provide, that's a horrible cruelty.
Right. Well, and I realized that I needed to, if these things were healthy for me, going to the doctor, getting a checkup, getting blood tests done to see how my cholesterol and my blood sugars and all those things were doing. Yeah. And it ended up being very kind of affirming for me because I waited till 3 years in to go to the doctor, and I could see that how much I literally, in terms of saving my own life, my numbers had plummeted and they were already so much better, even though I still have had more weight to shed. Yeah, it was just really empowering. And it wasn't with medication.
It was because you were learning to eat wisely for your body.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You know, the world we live in today, especially in this nation, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but pop a pill for this and that. And pretty soon, we're being killed on another level. The horrid eating habits haven't changed, but now we're adding, we're walking pharmacies. Yes. But the side effects are undoing the health of our liver, the health of our spleen, the health of there are so many people who go into kidney failure 10 years before they were ever supposed to die because they've been feeding themselves 15 pills a day over a 20-year period. So it's amazing to me, and what a testament that God has built healing into our bodies. Yes. If we learn to manage our bodies wisely, and those bad, scary numbers just started to plummet. No meds, no shots, just because you were changing how you were eating. Right. That is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did have... wow. Yeah, I mean, I have had medication just for low thyroid, but it's just, you know, that's a normal regulated thing. But I knew that it was the different lifestyle changes absolutely that had made the difference. And the other thing that I leaned into was the scale. It had taken me a while to get on the scale. It was a year and a half in till I even got on the scale the first time. Sure. And then I was kind of weekly, and then I started doing daily. And some people that's too much, but for me, it actually lessened my anxiety because I could treat it as a data point.
Okay.
This is how things affect me. This is how, you know, and it was like I was completely in reality, grounded in what was really happening in my own body. And so it's been good for me this year to have that technique, and also the exercise. I had been afraid of exercise.
Now, why were you afraid of exercise? That's interesting.
Right. I think a little bit of the shame and embarrassment of if I went to a gym, what would people say? Or also just, will my body be able to handle it? And I knew that my body this year I knew my body could handle whatever I asked it to do. So I felt prepared. That was a big change for me, feeling like I was getting smaller enough and releasing enough weight that I felt like my body could do what I wanted it to.
What a Rocky moment. I'm hearing in the back of my mind, da, 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 da. Right. For you to say, I knew I could get my body to do whatever I wanted it to do. Yeah. That you had transformed gradually in a healthy way with all the different little plans and changes that were all adding up to a bigger picture. Yeah. Such a transformation that whereas even a walk around the block caused you to be winded and feet hurt and knees hurt and stairs were probably impossible.
Right. Very difficult.
You know, and you talked about in the first show, you couldn't fit in a ride at an amusement park when you were with, that whole thing. And now you can say, I can take my body to exercise and do what I want it to do. And you're not out there running 15-mile marathons.
Right.
You're gaining and doing things that give muscle tone and strength. And
a lot of walking and some Zumba. I like Zumba.
Zumba, okay. Zumba's fun in this, And you're finding things that are good for you. Now, what kind of attitude did you have? And was your attitude changing as you were morphing, your attitudes were morphing? What was going on with that?
Yeah, I would say I knew that at any point, even though each year has had some different lessons or different things to focus on, I knew that there was no giving up. I was going to reach my goal. Like I don't know, it was just sort of an idea that, like, a resolve, I guess, of this is what I need to focus on and this is what matters most as far as, like, I know God wants this for me too. I know that I need to be my healthiest self. And so for me, it was really the not giving
self. That's huge.
To not give up. Was just that this really matters, and keeping that as the focus.
Now, are there certain seasons, because the year has seasons and ebbs and flows?
Right.
Was it hardest around your birthday, or was it hardest, around the time when your grandpa died, or was it hardest at Christmas time, or was it? Were there points where you thought, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm crawling up an ice cliff and I'm not making any headway"? Did you run into places like that? Because we have places like that, don't we? And were there some that were harder for you than others? And how did you push through and not start going backwards?
Right.
How did that work?
Yeah. Actually, the two you mentioned, my birthday time, which is in the middle of the year, and then Christmas, because they tend to be associated with more food and celebratory everything, and often are in more happy ways, but still can be problematic, where I was kind of giving myself, like, I can have the week to eat what I, this sort of like a break or like a vacation from it. And I had to learn how to integrate that, because especially the first year or two, that would be a time that I would consider almost like sliding into old habits that I had to, and it actually, the first year at least, it did lead to maybe like a month of having more struggle and feeling like, even though I wasn't weighing at the time, that I was gaining a little bit. And so then I had to adjust and say, I think that's too much freedom. I need to not say I can have a week of whatever. I need to continue to do the things that have helped me be successful. So definitely there are certain times of year that have been triggers, but I've tried to learn how to manage those in a more realistic way.
Yeah. I've actually, sometimes when I'm working on stuff, pulling the Lord into it, I'll say, Lord, there's not even any point in me praying about such and such, because I have proven to myself and to you, I fail so consistently in this. What's the point? So instead of me trying to be strong, me trying to be disciplined, me trying to, in this food area here, I'm good here and here, but over here is like the danger zone. I'll say, Lord, I want to remind me that I'm supposed to ask your take on your perspective on the food I'm thinking about eating. Remind me to be my coach. Remind me, if you were here with me, would you say to me, Lord, go ahead and eat that, Jackie? Or would you say, go ahead and eat this? I want you to be my coach. Would you do that for me? And I'll find I'll be starting to think about, or thinking I'm craving, which I'm not. It's just a mental habit of thinking I'm craving something. And I'll get this nudge that otherwise wouldn't have been there of, why don't you have this instead? And it's not like, no, you don't get to have that, some ogre voice from heaven shooting lightning at me. It's this nudge of love that I asked for of, why don't you have this instead? And part of me will argue, but I'll realize, no, if I actually go over and have that apple and cut it in half, that first bite, it's like, man, this is good. It's crunchy, it's sweet, it's juicy. And if I just follow that nudge, so right now I'm learning to do that as, Lord, coach me. Instead of me trying to be brave and, I've just failed too many times. Would you coach me? It literally, from before I'm doing it and then the hand to mouth. would you coach me? So that's where I am right now with so but he's willing to help and get involved and now you talked about when we were preparing for this, you talked about self-sabotage.
Yes.
I think if self-sabotage weren't an issue, we all wouldn't put the weight on. We are
absolutely
killing ourselves, sabotaging ourselves, punishing ourselves, demeaning ourselves, abusing ourselves with food. And there's a lot more attached to it than calories, dress size, pant size.
Yes.
My favorite food is stuff. There's so much more than that. So I want us to talk about, we're just going to dive into it a lot in the next program about self-sabotage.
Okay.
What it is, what it looks like, what causes it, what triggers it. Everybody's different, but I have the feeling as we talk and share, you're going to come up with. You got a quick comment against the time we have of maybe a first point about self-sabotage?
Yeah. Just that it's so universal for people to self-sabotage in different ways. And there's often like shame associated with it. Yeah. And it's really more about recognizing it as being something that affects everyone and sort of normalizing it a little bit, but also then being able to pinpoint individually
what's going on
with
why am I doing
and
this?
why, and doing a little bit of that introspection or self-assessment to just kind of figure out, what it is, and if you can kind of see the beginning of the trail even a little bit, it helps a lot.
That's a good way of,
it helps a lot.
That's a good way of saying it. Asking God, what's at the root of this? What's going on with me? What's at the root?
Yeah.
Because really, we don't just want his help to shave the surface off. That's kind of like mowing grass. It's going to come back. We'd like him to go after the root causes of what's going on so we don't keep repeating the same self-sabotaging behavior.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and we want to change my life.
Save my life.
Save my life.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, what a mantra. Change my life, save my life. That's wonderful. So, Alyssa Halberg, everybody, thank you so much for being here. We're going to do one more session. I hope you'll return to watch for that. I'm Jackie Priestley. You've been watching Let's Talk About It, and I sure hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.